Welcome to the Musical Musings series of episodes. The difference between ordinary and extraordinary is practice, and senior musicians are extraordinary because of this reason. Learning and understanding the musical journey that the senior musicians have gone through. Not only journey, but also concert experiences, um, musical aspects that they loved the most, manodharma aspects that they loved, and the musical knowledge that they gained all these years. It always inspires and motivates the current and the future generation. The objective of this series is to uncover the person from the music. And as we all know, gurus have played a very big role in musicians' journey. While we understand the person behind the music, we also understand the people or the gurus that shaped musicians musically and personally. And one such senior musician belonging to a very rich school of music is Sri Balaji Jagannathan. It's a great privilege to have Balaji with us today. And in this episode, I would like to talk to him about his musical training, childhood memories, Patantarams, Bani, about his guru, his concert experiences, musical knowledge that he's blessed with, manodharma aspects, his students, and opinion about the future of Carnatic music, and much more. Let me invite Balaji now. Hi, welcome to this.
Hello, Gayatri, namaste. Nice to see you again.
So, Balaji, எனக்கு நீங்க சொல்லுங்க, when did you start learning? நீங்க தான் ஃபர்ஸ்ட் ஜெனரேஷனா உங்களோட ஃபேமிலியில உங்களுக்கு முன்னாடி யாராவது அப்பா அம்மா தாத்தா பாட்டி யாராவது they've learned music and உங்களோட ஃபர்ஸ்ட் குரு யாரு and then அதுக்கப்புறமா எந்தெந்த குருஸ் கிட்ட you went and then how did you start learning ஒருத்தரோட லேர்னிங் ஸ்டைல் எப்படி டீச்சிங் ஸ்டைல் அப்புறம் பாணி all these things please tell me. நான் அப்பப்ப நடுவுல வந்து உங்களை கொஸ்டின் கேட்பேன்.
About 70 to 80% of my learning has been through caving yanam, and it has been through observation and listening.
Okay.
And I would say my musical journey started at the age of 5, 6, when I had 3 elder sisters and them were learning music. But they were young. They were learning one gentleman, Kashinath Bhagavathar, who was a disciple of Shemangudi.
Oh, okay.
Shemangudi Srinivasar. And I used to accompany them for when they went on their classes. I did not know anything about music. I think I unconsciously absorbed much of it. My mother used to say that I could identify raga from a very young age, but I have no recollection of that. And around the age of 9, I exhibited some tendencies, for having advanced swaram. That I used to help sisters even though I was just 9 and 13 or 14. If they had difficulties in singing about a sangadi, I would sing the swaram or this how it should be sung and come out, and everyone says it would come out right, or it was a fluke or not. So my mom decided that I would also, not actively practice, but at least listen to them when they are practicing. So that was a very real part of my earlier training. When I was 10 years of age, one of my sisters started learning the violin, but fortunately it was a brief because her teacher, who was a disciple of Kandavi Arihisami, he was a gentleman called Krishnamurti. He stayed in Jamshedpur for only about 6 months or so, and in that 6 months, whatever my sister could learn, she passed it on to me, which was basically, everything up to Janta Shai and Datuvar Shai and the first stages of playing and all that. When I was 11, I appeared on the concert stage for the first time with my sister. We played a very duet, which was quite surprisingly Hindi songs with Hindi film songs, but based in classical music. So that was quite well received, and it was to a North Indian audience, predominantly Bengalis. And part of the KV actually came from All India Radio. Since I was based in Jamshedpur, I was born and brought up, I didn't mention it earlier. Our source of Carnatic music was mainly India Radio. But unfortunately, the transmitters in Chennai and Vijayawada, Bangalore, they were not very strong at that time. And whatever signals we used to get, they would be jammed by the Chinese signals coming from across the Himalayas. It was very close to the Tibet border.
It's funny.
But we used to take pleasure in listening to whatever we could, especially the national programs. I think the show was 4 Hindustani programs for every 1 Carnatic program, but nevertheless we used to listen to it. And the radio Sangeet Samar that used to come every year. And in Jampur itself, we had a association, the Dharma Sasta Samuha, which is had a Sasta Ovil. And every year we invite very senior artists from the south. For 3 days of this, there will be non-stop concerts, and all these concerts were free. So that was really a blessing because not only we could see the musicians up front, we could also interact with them, go talk with them, and invite them for dinner and things like that. Jamshedpur being a small place, it was not all that difficult. But it was quite surprising how humble many of them were despite vast Vidwan. I still remember one incident where Trivandrum RSM had come to Jamshedpur, and I was a boy of about 13 or 14, and said, "You can go saman vaanganam. You go to the shops, he wants to buy something." And the shops were about 15 minutes away, so I walked with him. I just asked him, how do you sing Varnams and Talams and all that? And right in the middle of the road, he started singing the Mohana Varnam, Ninnu Kori, and then he said, "This is how you put the Tadam, and this is how you get the beat and all that." I got a free lesson that day on the road. But in the meantime, we had also the good fortune of making contact with Bangalore Matiyar Tangammal, who was Vidushi. In those days, It was called Vidwan's degree. I think now it's called the BA in for MA in music, but apparently the Vidwan's degree was difficult to get those days. She hailed from Bangalore, and she was the younger daughter of Bangalore, Krishna Bhagavatar, who was a Harikatha exponent. And she taught us a lot of things, which we never knew existed. I mean, which you could have picked up looking at Vidwans or listening to the radio. For example, the importance of Akara Sadhana in developing your manodharma or in singing Varnams in speeds. In fact, she taught us all this. And the thing was that she would sing and then she would make me also sing. And I had to sing, and she didn't know much about the violin, so I had to transcribe all that on violin using my own very limited and rudimentary skills. And that's how it developed slowly. And I also had the good fortune of meeting some very senior ones along. One of them was M.S. Gopashnam. He had come to Jamshedpur for a program with his brother Sanantaraman, and he accompanied by Vishwanath Iyer. He was, people had told me that, MSG sir tends to be brusque and he tends to be rude and you should not go and disturb him and all that. But I took the chance and I took the violin, and I met him, and for 1.5 hours he was with me, and he gave me some very patient advice, and with a very gentle smile he put me at ease, and I could not even imagine that a person with such a towering personality in music would be so humble. And then he gave a piece of advice. He said, you don't have to be very you don't have to play very fast, or you don't have to show off your vidwan. Whatever you do, do it dearly. Okay, so at least when you play the violin, you don't have all the switching sounds and all. That was a very basic piece of advice. Then, being very enthusiastic, I asked him about how he plays Hindustani and all that. And he told me, look here, I've been playing for the past 34 years. I can't explain all this to you in the 10 minutes. But that was one experience I'm not likely to forget. This was back in 1973. And you won't be surprised to know that the concert that he played that day, every Sangadi, every song, and every Kalpana Swaram, I remember start to.
That's amazing.
I started with Roni and then and I mean, that's how enthusiastic I was.
ஒரு குரு கிட்டக்கு நீங்க கத்துண்டது ஏதாவது டிஃபரன்ஸ் இருந்ததா? லைக் the way you learned, ஒருத்தருடைய சொல்லி கொடுக்கிற விதம், அத பத்தி கொஞ்சம் எக்ஸ்பிளைன் பண்ணுங்க. Whatever you learned.
See, initially, like I said, when Kashi Vishwanath Bhagavatar was teaching, it was just a matter of imitation. But when people imitate, I think the first step towards learning. The second thing is when I started learning the violin from my sister, even though it was very brief, her emphasis was on long practice. So she used to practice for 6 or 8 hours every day.
Good.
And my mother, my parents, they also expected the same thing from me. Ask a 10-year-old boy to practice for 6 hours a day. I mean, even in those days, it was not a achievable thing. But I was expected to practice at least 2 hours every time I sat down to practice.
Okay.
And every time means every day. So there would be no Saturdays or Sundays or anything. So with my sister, the emphasis was on the intensity of the practice. So on the Janta Vashella, you could not complain that you are bored or it is not coming. You have to play it again and again and again. Then when I started learning from Tangamal, Bangalore Tangamal Mami, her emphasis was on rhythm and brigas, rhythm, brigas, and akaram. So whatever varnams I had learned until then, I used to play them straight line. So gama da ni ni da ni sa ni ni da ni da ma gama gari sa. Appadi enno typewriter la adikapla andha mari vaasichittu irundhen. But mommy used to say you have to play gama da ni ni da ni sa. That was the approach she had, and she also said that regardless of the speed that you play in, you should preserve as much as possible all the brigas and all the gamagam. Now, in a violin, that is very difficult.
Yeah.
Because first of all, you've got 2 strings, you have to change between them. And it is not just a question of fingering, it is a question of your bowing. Your bowing has to be very controlled. And your bowing has to fit the sahityam. which later when you do in also that is the principle. Something I have been trying to master, but I think it's a very long journey, and the people, even the advanced who have mastered it, are very few. So that was the emphasis on Guru Tangamal's style of learning. And
யாரோட disciple? அவளை பத்தி கொஞ்சம் சொல்லுங்க about Tangamal's.
Srimati Tangamal was a disciple of Sri R.R. Keshavamurthy in Bangalore. And Sri R.R. Keshavamurthy was a contemporary of Chaudhaya.
Oh, okay.
Chaudhaya and R.R. Keshavamurthy both used to play on the seven string.
Seven string.
And Keshavamurthy was not only a contemporary, he was also a competitor. Yeah, the seven string violin. And my Guru Tangamal learnt much of her music from him.
Okay.
Even though he was a violinist and she was a vocalist, I think she imbibed all that, all the niceties of the violin to her voice, and therefore she was able to transmit it to me as well. Then the last one I had was quite fortunately, I used to keep in touch with the Sri Balaji and in the late 90s, in the middle 90s, whenever I came to India, I used to visit him. And one day he offered himself. He said, "Why don't you come for a couple of lessons?" Okay. And he gave me 2 lessons free of charge. Okay. And he also said, "You don't have to be a violin. I have got my violins here, and you can learn on my violins." And there he gave me some valuable tips. He said that again, you have to be very clear in what you play. So far as the fingering is involved, the fingering that you use for Andatandi is the same you use for the Uchasthai. And if you are starting your practice, always play something without any gamagam. Maybe your notes are right. Even on the concert stage, you do that. So if you are playing the Hamsadhwani Varnam, for example, you see ga re sa ni sa re ga re sa ni. Then you can go to ga re sa. What will happen is the first cycle that you play, it proves the accuracy of your notes. The audience is also satisfied. Secondly, that forms a Sangati in itself. Correct. So if you're short of Sangati, you can always play a flat, and then you can develop it, and then you can flesh out the song. So these were a couple of the tips that I remember. I think, but it was I should say it was a mind-blowing experience. It's something that you can only dream of, taught by him, and at one volition. He did not accept fees, but he just said whenever you can, and he didn't offer to give me lessons of that. But even 2 lessons with him, I think, was son of a lifetime. Thereafter, my development has been, playing for concerts as an accompanist in concerts. I never played solo. I've always played as an accompanist because I feel that you can actually learn much more. My focus is always on learning. So you can always learn much more by accompanying than by playing solo.
So what are
different schools of about this, but this has always been my approach.
In the aspects that you started learning when you started accompanying, slow on the learning curve, eppadi improve aach?
Yes. Initially, I found out that there is a big difference between playing at home and playing on the stage. I mean, as any artist knows, what comes on stage is only 40%, 30% of what you practice. That is one thing. I was not prepared for that. Slowly, I've adjusted myself at. The second thing is you should learn how to use the mic. Mic irukadilla. The sound that you hear is reflected off the walls and the floor and the ceiling and all that. Yeah. But in the hall, you have got a mic, and you've got to visualize what sort of music the audience is hearing, not what music you are playing. So what the audience is hearing becomes more important than what you are playing. That is a very important lesson for all accompanists, and I think for all main artists as well. I mean, you would be the better judge of it. Those are 2 things. Then the third thing I learned was preparation, the importance of preparation. Never be too smug, never be too confident. To that extent, I have always requested all the vocals, whom I have accompanied to give me the benefit of a couple of results. So that puts me at ease on the stage, and there's a lot of bonding between me and the main artist on the stage, and I can actually go home and develop my manodharma along the lines of the raga or song or what it is, and I can also adapt myself to the vocalist's style of singing. That is very important because it is very important that the accompanist accompanies and he supports the vocalist. The accompanist is not there on stage to show off his best or to do things that the vocalist cannot do. That should never be the motivator. The motivator should be the team is giving a performance. The vocalist is in the driver's seat, and how best we support him or her. That was a very important lesson that I learned. And in the course of that, you have to suppress yourself many times because you may have to encourage the vocalist's imagination and line thinking, because not all vocalists would develop ragam in the same way. Some would give a outline in the beginning and then go on to more detailed things. Some would focus on the lower styles. Some would focus on their styles. So you have to play it in such a way that their singing is enriched. Okay, that's one very important lesson I learned. And the other thing was to learn from the mistakes that I make in a concert. I mean, there's no dirt mistakes that I make. There's a lot of them. But some of the main mistakes, like having control of laya or playing kalpanaswarams in accordance with the vocalist section, because vocalist is singing kalpanaswaram of two avartanams. You should not play for 3 avartanams or 4 avartanams. You should stick to 2 avartanams or less. These things that I've been doing, I mean, it has been a painful journey because everything has to be done alone, and I just wish that I really had a good pedigree to back it up. But like all musicians, this is a lifelong learning process. So I take it in that spirit.
Actually, I think Pakavadya Dharmam அப்படிங்கிறது வந்து I can literally see in you. ஒரு கச்சேரியிலும் உங்களோட மனோதர்மம் வந்து என்னோட நீங்க எப்பலாம் whenever உங்களோட நான் கான்சர்ட்ஸ் பண்ணப்பலாம், the thing that I've always noticed consistent is மனோதர்மம் இருக்கும், but at the same time will be in the right proportion, which is amazing, and that is one of the Pakavadya Dharma.
Yes, I'm very happy you said that, because it seems that I've achieved some of my goals.
But இது அத்தனையுமே வந்து the great thing is you have learned it.
Thank you for that.
It's the on the job training madri you have learned it.
But my biggest regrets has been that my guru, I have never accompanied my guru on stage. And she used to, Tangamal, Bangalore Tangamal, she used to tell me, Balu, na orna kacheri kudupe ninda enak vaasichana. She would say that. Fortunately, she didn't live long enough. And I think that's one of the regrets to date that I've. That's very I've been really a great experience to sit along with her on the stage and
perform
and accompany her.
Performer evolve ஆறு அந்த stage. அது வந்து how do you explain it? Like எப்படி நீங்க அதை evolve ஆறு ஒரு performer evolve ஆன அந்த journey?
It is a bit difficult to say because firstly, everything is not clear cut. And secondly, it has taken place over a long period of time, so the change is very imperceptible. From one raga to the other, there is a very small change, but there's a big difference between Kanakanga and Rasikapriya. And it is basically that. What happens is when you start out on stage as a comparatively young person, you follow, you are over enthusiastic, and you don't really care much for what the audience is hearing. What you are playing and what the audience is listening to are two different things. So, like I said, you have yourself in the audience's shoes, and that is one very way of evolving. So that's one thing I have been telling all students as well. Technically, correct vaachaka, it is not enough. It should be pleasing to the kaadukku enemy. Secondly, you play, and this is an advice I've given my daughter as well. You sing on stage, you have to present yourself very well. You have to engage with the audience. You have to make contact with the audience. You have to make eye contact with other performers. And again, you have to keep on thinking நான் வாசிக்க வந்து என்னது ஈஸி ஆடிங் டு த கான்சர்ட் உபகாரமா இருக்கா இல்ல உபதிரவமா இருக்காங்கிறது நாம தட்ஸ் a continuous back of your mind. So sometimes I mean there are problems because of the mic, the feedback, and the stage is an open space. So sometimes I don't know whether Shruti is mine or not, and that is a nightmare for any violinist. சரி ஸ்ருதி மேட்ச் ஆச்சுனாக்கா சரி நம்ம தாளத்துக்கு இருந்தாப்புல வாசிக்கணும், நம்ம நேரம் வந்து it should be along with the should stick to the rhythm. Tanam Bashkachi, it should sound like not like a set of notes cobbled to it, that sort of thing is always at the back of your mind. And I think that's what contributes to the evolution. That is the main part of the evolution, in fact, until such time that it becomes second. So, ஒரு கான்சர்ட் வாசிக்கிறவங்க வந்து தானம் பாடுறா இல்லாட்டா துக்கடா பாடுனாக்கா or listening a rhythm, you know how exactly play. I mean, because you have been thinking about it, it has been in your conscious all the time. Immediately come out with a very apt punch.
Correct.
I think that is what is the evolution. That is, you should be mindful of your listeners and you should be mindful of your music. The other thing that I have learned is you should not use the music to project yours. You should use the music to project the main artist and the music itself. இப்போ என்ன தவம் செய்தேன்னு சொன்னாக்கா the audience should be able to see, the devotee telling Yashoda, I mean, how fortunate you have been. அந்த மாதிரி வாசிக்கணுமே தவிர we should not show off our expertise in kapi rag and ruin the whole experience. That should be the priority. So all these things, I mean, I think it is a gamut of priorities that you have in front of you. But once you have internalized them, the evolution is more or less complete. I cannot say I'm complete because I mean I don't claim any expertise for myself, but these are just my observations.
That's good. You vocal நிறைய learn பண்ணிருக்கேன். So how do you think the vocal has helped you in violin?
It has helped me tremendous. இது நீங்க நிறைய வித்வான் கேட்டீங்கன்னாக்கா all they will all say the same thing, that you should know to sing vocal. You need not be a virtuoso. You need not be up to concert standard. But ஒரு பாட்டு வந்து கச்சிதமா அவசியம் இல்லாதிக்கு தாளத்தோடு பாடினது உங்களுக்கு நல்லா தெரியும். That is the first. Second thing is you should realize that the violin can do this which the human voice cannot, and vice versa. Voice la panna mudiya, what we can do on voice and what not do on the violin. I would give an example of a continuous break. Okay, இப்போ விரிபோனி பாடுறவங்களே அதுக்கு முன்னாடி வந்து ஒரு சங்கதை that continuity is very difficult to achieve in a violin. அதுல வந்து மூணாம் காலம் கூட இது வந்து ஒரே போல வந்து வயலின்ல வரணும். I can quote an instance from a Hindi song. I don't know if you're interested in listening to it.
It's okay.
A Hindi film song which is based on classical music, which is a very old song. Shall I render it for your benefit or?
Yeah, please.
Oh, this is one instance of where you can sing something vocally but very difficult to reproduce it. And you come across this, at times. Many vocalists, they sang this, it's difficult to reproduce. So you go to the closest one. For violin on there, where there are straight notes, but they are distorted. Malayamardam panchmungale. Sa re ga da ni sa sa ni da pa ga re sa 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 re re ga 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 sa ni da pa ga ga re re sa sa. And the Malayalam violin vasikathu easy because it calls for a front of fingers. And if your finger positions and the thanams are correct, your job is done. But it is a nightmare for the vocalist. I don't know. Maybe you can tell. I think the only vocalist Vidwan who have seen this is ML Vasantakumari.
அப்புறம் அப்படி பார்த்தா இப்போ விவாதி இருக்கு இல்லையா? இப்போ விவாதி இருக்கு. Let's take any விவாதி. அதுல எனக்கு அந்த क्वेश्चन இருக்கு. இப்போ நாங்க வந்து சரிகமா அப்படி இருக்குன்னா அத நாங்க ரீ தான் சொல்றோம். சரிகா நீங்க அத விவாதி எப்படி எடுத்துப்பீங்க? அதாவது கா காவன் காடு அப்படி
That's a very good thing. I mean, in fact, that is something I struggle with students, not with Vivadi Ragams, but I'll do that very, very shortly. இப்போ விவாதி ராகத்துல வந்து என்னன்னாக்க ச ச ச ச ச ச ரி க ம ப த நி ச ச ரி, that we are articulating, or yes, we are articulating re, but we are singing a mixture of ga and re violin. I think this is true of the Vimna. நீங்க வந்து ச ரி க அப்படி வாசிக்கலாம், but the flavor of the ragam is lost. Kalanatta vasikkanukku sa ri ga ma e da ya gati, you cannot say gati and mari vasikka mudiyadhu. So for the Vivadi ragam, your finger also has to be supported by another finger below, which will give the corrugated effect to the sound.
இப்போ வந்து சில manodharma aspectsல, before I go to the manodharma aspects, இப்போ நீங்க கான்செப்ட் பிளானிங், கான்செப்ட் மேனேஜ்மெண்ட் நீங்க பார்த்தீங்கன்னா எப்படி இருக்கணும்னு, how do you expect, இப்போ இதெல்லாம் இருந்ததுன்னா ஒரு சக்சஸ்ஃபுல் கான்செப்டா யூ திங்க், and what is எதெல்லாம் நீங்க எக்ஸ்பெக்ட் பண்றீங்க from the main artist and from yourself?
Yes, I mean, for myself, I'm not qualified to say because I have not given concerts, but as an accompanist, I can tell you what most successful concerts, what is the denominator in them. They are not overly technical. Ipo Kanakaswaram, for example, M.S. Gopalakrishnan sir used to say that Kanakaswaram should be like pickles in food. You should use it very sparingly, and that's about it. So there should not be high technicalities. Similarly, Grahabedam kuda, you should not focus on it too much. I'm not insulting the audience's level of intelligence or anything. What I'm saying is the audience to be enlightened, educated, and entertained as well. Okay, if you don't understand the song, how can you be entertained? So that's one thing. The concert should have an element of thickness. It should never sag. And this is very true. You are singing very heavy rhythms like Yadukula Kambo or Beri or something like that. It is very easy for the concert to sag, and the artist does not notice. So that element of crispness and briskness should be there. The other thing is you should never place, light sounding ragams next to each other. I mean, I have actually seen people sing Pantorali next to Purigal. I mean, they're just done. I mean, that's one. The concert should have a delicious mix of all composers and all the three languages: Sanskrit, Tamil, Telugu. Different. And it should be easy for the audience to identify. இப்போ ஒரு நம்ம எல்லாமே விவாதி ராகம் எல்லாமே ராகமா பாடணும்னாக்கா the audience will get turned off, because when you're giving a cut, it's not in a vacuum. You are giving it in a committee sitting. You are giving it obviously for the benefit of audience as well. So one has to thoroughly interact with and hold audience's attention. And having said that, it is also important for the artist to display his vidvat. If audience they won't understand karadka, naambalum nammal suppress pannikkiradhu, it is very difficult. So you should show vidvat, you should show your virtuosity, but it should be in the right proportion. It should not be over, and you should never talk down to an audience. Something like that. You should always keep in mind that the audience is also observing. There are a large number of people in the audience who may or may not be knowledgeable.
Correct.
But at the end of the day, they shouldn't feel that they have wasted their time. That's my. That's what I would say one of the key driving forces should be.
Yeah. Tough situations vandirukka ungalku concert bodu. If you can share a few with us.
Yes. There have been quite a few. I mean, I'll start with my earliest experience. I mean, all these, they're not good movies, but at least they have, taught me to learn things along the way.
Yes.
In Jamshedpur, we had a Tagaraj Utsavam. No, not Tagaraj Utsavam. We had a Dikshadhar Day. We used to celebrate it on Diwali every day, every year. And I used to accompany the different, the amateur singers and professionals, because I was the only violinist there. And Inga Guru on the audience and one lady who was accompanying, she sang Swanadena in Dikshadhar Padma. Unfortunately, I was not used to sitting on stage and playing in front of mic. I couldn't hear what she sang, but it sounded like Madhyamavati to me. She sang Brindavan Saranga and I accompanied Madhyamavati. And I came down from the stage, my guru was very angry. She said, I tried to explain. I said, look here, I could just see lips moving, but I could not make out that it was Brindavan Saranga. I haven't heard the song. But Guru was not happy. She said, I expect better from you. So I don't hold it against her. I mean, teachers tend to have a high expectation of the students. Second was when I was in for a feast in Sydney, and he was from India, and he played the ragam Chintamani, Devi Brova.
Yeah.
Upon Chintamani, Kalpana. Chintamani is a very, you would agree, it is very rare raga. And I think the only one composition there is that Devi Brova of Shama Sastri. So I think I did what sounded like Chintamani, but I was very happy. Nobody told me, people were polite to say anything, but I was not very happy about that. So these are two experiences that stand in my mind. Okay. And occasionally when I was young, I tried to, play Sangadis on stage, which would never come out properly. Going beyond the pa and all that. I did it and it was disastrous. And I think the audience came to the singer on stage and said, Unga paata nannadhu pakavadiyam sumaravthu. I wasn't a boy at that time, just took it in my spirit. But I knew, you have to recognize your limitations.
No, but that is good actually, because we learn every day. Our journey it is about learning. So, because of that.
Yes, you learn from the school of hard knocks, and these are some of the hard knocks that you go through.
Correct.
But the important thing is you have to be emotionally ready to accept these things, or somebody has to give you emotional support.
Correct.
So, if your parents also say that then you immediately feel that you are good for nothing, you are useless, your self-esteem goes down. That would never happen, especially for a child. A child, I'm talking about, say, a boy of say 14 to 16 years old.
Yeah.
That's the formative years.
Correct.
So tend to make mistakes at times. Yes, make mistakes. We just move on.
இப்போ நிறைய டைப்ஸ் ஆஃப் ஆடியன்ஸ் இருக்கா, ரைட்? ஆடியன்ஸ்ல ரொம்ப இன்டராக்ட் பண்ற ஆடியன்ஸ், இன்டராக்ட் இன் த சென்ஸ் நம்ம வாசிக்கிறப்போ தலையாட்டி கேட்கிற, பட் சில பேர் டால் மாதிரி உட்காந்துக்கிற ஆடியன்ஸ், அப்படியும் இருக்கா. இதுல எந்த மாதிரி, ஐம் ஷூர் உங்களோட கான்சர்ட் எக்ஸ்பீரியன்ஸ்ல இந்த மாதிரி ரெண்டு டைப்ஸ் ஆஃப் ஆடியன்ஸும் நீங்க பார்த்திருப்பீங்க. அது உங்களோட அத பத்தின எப்படி நீங்க how do you take it, அந்த மாதிரி சிச்சுவேஷன்ஸ் how do you manage those, handle those situations?
You see, the thing is, you have to accept that இப்ப நீங்க சொன்னீங்க இல்லையா, தலையாட்ட உட்காந்துருப்பா, some people in the audience are always like that. They will put their heads for anybody, so they can't be a criterion of what is good or what is bad in your playing. Okay. So, the second thing is there are artists, there are people in the audience who will just sit motionless without an expression on their face, regardless of whatever you achieve on stage. Stage, first class or combo but they are thoroughly assessing what they are capable of. I think that is the artist, or that is the audience to which you have to put. There will always be the people who want pop numbers, like semi-classical or movie part and all part, or actually songs from a particular language or from a particular composer, or only virithams and like that. But in that respect, I've always been a purist. I'm not saying that my attitude is right. I'm just saying that this is my attitude. I mean, a lot of people tend to tailor the kacheri men according to the audience. I think you should have your own standards of excellence. Okay. If you have got your standards of excellence, the confidence comes within. Okay. 4 பேர் உட்காண்டா ஐயோ அவ என்ன சொல்லுவா நம்ம நினைச்சோம்னாக்க your focus goes away from the music into getting endorsement from the audience. And endorsement from the audience is a very fickle thing. Recognition is a very fickle thing. The people who praise you today, they may damn you tomorrow. They'll praise somebody else who you less worthy. I mean, so praise is worth going after. You should have your own standard. And for there is no shortage these days. You've got a plethora of performances on YouTube. You can have, you can have different Vidwans singing different padandarams. You can choose one, select one, and say that I'm going to sing exactly like this, and I'm going to aspire this. நீங்க அந்த மாதிரி பண்ணி நமக்குள்ளே ஒரு கான்ஃபிடன்ஸ் இருந்ததுனாக்கா I don't think the attitude or size of the audience makes a big difference. I mean, if the audience enjoys it, then good. If the audience doesn't enjoy it, you think you have done your best, and you recognize the part of the learning process, and you have that element of humility in you. I think things should mind. Because you're not giving a concert today and disappearing tomorrow. You're going to give a concert today, a concert next month. There will be a series of concerts. So one builds upon the other. I would say that.